On February 19, 2020, the small town of Hanau in Germany became the blood-soaked backdrop of an act of racial terrorism. 9 innocent lives were murdered by a far-right extremist who was empowered by the same xenophobic, anti-immigrant rhetoric that the German state has been silently endorsing for decades. The far-right's grip is tightening, and the government's refusal to confront the structural racism embedded in this society is creating a perfect storm for violent white supremacy. The truth is undeniable: this is not an isolated incident. This is Germany's legacy, a toxic cocktail of neoliberal capitalism, colonial history, and mainstream white supremacy.
Hanau, das war Mord! Widerstand an jedem Ort!
Hanau, das war Mord! Widerstand an jedem Ort! Hanau, das war Mord! Widerstand an jedem Ort! Hanau, das war Mord! Widerstand an jedem Ort!
Nazis morden, der Staat macht mit! Der NSU war nicht zu dritt!
Nazis morden, der Staat macht mit! Der NSU war nicht zu dritt! Nazis morden, der Staat macht mit! Der NSU war nicht zu dritt! Nazis morden, der Staat macht mit! Der NSU war nicht zu dritt!
Im gesamten deutschen Bundesgebiet ist in den letzten Jahrzehnten pro Tag ein Deutscher getötet worden durch einen Ausländer. Also angenommen, pro Tag im Schnitt ist ein Deutscher getötet worden durch einen Ausländer. Bedeutet also demnach 365 pro Jahr. Da das Problem schon Jahrzehnte existiert, rechnen wir vereinfacht mal mit 40 Jahren, kommt also demnach eine Summe raus von 14.600.
The Hanau attacker, Tobias Ratjen, was born in 1977. His friends described him as strange, introverted, and prone to unexpected outbursts of anger. The killer's father, and also his ideologue, Hans-Gerd Ratjen, was known for his extreme right-wing behavior. Hans Ratjen had been repeatedly reported to the police for verbal and physical attacks on his immigrant neighbors, but no action was taken.
It's not just the shooter who's culpable. No. The responsibility falls squarely on the institutions, the police, the media, and a political class that has been actively complicit in fueling hate while pretending to uphold democracy.
The only possible escape route for the victims was the emergency exit, but this door had been closed days earlier by the order of the German police. The victims were killed by 16 close-range gunshots, with no chance of escape.
Make no mistake, this isn't a one bad apple situation. The far right has become a mainstream force in Germany. This is the consequence of a political culture that's long ignored its colonial past, that's grown comfortable with the normalcy of violence against minorities, and that has enabled the far right to infiltrate every level of society. Far-right extremism is thriving because it has institutional backing, whether it's from mainstream political figures who wink and nod at fascist rhetoric, or from law enforcement that shows a worrying pattern of complicity. It's not a coincidence. It's deliberate. This is the structural violence that Germany refuses to face.
Einmal jetzt die Kamera aus, das ist eine polizeiliche Maßnahme. Sie dürfen dann Ton nicht aufnehmen.
No, I'm from press. No, I'm from press. No, I'm from press. I have the rights to cover.
Look at the state's response. The police don't just ignore far-right extremism, they enable it. They stand side by side with neo-Nazis. Where is the outrage when we see police forces endorsing white supremacy through their inaction or, worse, direct support? The real problem isn't just the far right, it's the institutions that are allowing them to thrive. The mainstream media, the political class, and the police, they are all complicit. And it's time we call it for what it is: state-sponsored fascism in action. Hanau was not an isolated incident. It is the end result of a failure that has been building for decades. A failure to confront the reality of racism, xenophobia, and white supremacy that has been woven into Germany's social fabric. Germany's far right didn't just emerge from the shadows, they've been given a platform. In the wake of Hanau, their dangerous rhetoric and violent ideologies continue to fester. And now, in the aftermath of the recent elections, the far right has made a stark return to the political mainstream. What we're witnessing is not just the rise of extremist ideology, it's the resurgence of a deeply entrenched culture of tolerance for fascism. It is the consequence of collective silence, a society that, time and again, has chosen to look the other way. Fascism doesn't rise on its own, it thrives on collective silence. The tolerance for violence and genocide has always been its breeding ground. The world's deafening silence during the Palestinian genocide, just as with the indifference to the systematic slaughter of 6 million Jews, fuels the rise of hate. Germany has allowed history to repeat itself, turning away from the atrocities they know are happening, ignoring the cries of the oppressed. If German society does not stand up now, if it does not confront fascism in its most brutal form, we will witness its full return, unrestrained, unforgiving, unstoppable. The time to confront fascism is now, or we risk letting it consume us all.
Antwort Widerstand! Stopp und